When you're writing an exam that includes a closed book portion, such as the API 510, 570, or 653 exam, a lot of people prepare by attempting to memorize dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of facts. This is really difficult, at least for most of us, and overall, it's absolutely the wrong way to prepare. So the question is asked, and it's fair, how do you pass a closed book exam without memorizing stuff? Well, to be clear, there is a limited amount of memorization needed for the API exams, but it is far, far less than what most people think. The way to get around needing to memorize facts is to understand the concept behind the facts. You see, if you memorize a fact, as an example, a responsibility from API 510, the exam has to ask you about that exact fact in order for you to parrot that information back on the exam. So in order to prepare, you need to memorize all the facts about all the responsibilities to be ready for what they might ask you on the exam. But if you were to understand the concept behind the responsibilities, it doesn't matter what they ask on the exam, you're going to be able to reason on the choices that are given based on your understanding. You don't have to memorize everything because you understand the concept. This is far easier, you prepare much quicker, and you're more efficient in the exam. And we're going to develop that example of responsibilities a little bit more in a minute. So how do you begin? Developing understanding begins by knowing how to prepare for a closed book exam. There is no possible way to prepare for a closed book exam without actually opening the books and figuring out what's in the code. You have to get in there and learn what the documents have in them. But this is the key. As you study, begin to ask yourself, where do I need to know this information? Do I need to know it out in the field, or do I need to know it in my office where I have my books? While there are some exceptions, overall, the API exam primarily focuses on the difficult concepts such as design calculations, impact testing, weld procedure review, materials lookups. That's open book stuff. This is the stuff you would look up when you're in your office and you have access to your copies of the codes. But things that you need to know out in the field, inspection steps, inspection practices, hydro test rules, responsibilities, positions of welding. These are things that would be fair game for the closed book exam. Begin to pay attention to where you need to know something. If it's an open book concept like a design calculation, don't memorize it. Make sure you know how to find it and how to use it. But if it's something you need to know out in the field, rather than memorizing, try to understand the concepts governing that fact. For example, specific responsibility. Who is responsible for being satisfied that a temporary repair will render a vessel fit for continued service until permanent repairs can be made? Is it the inspector? Is it the engineer? Is it the inspector or the engineer? Is it the inspector and the engineer? Those are the type of choices that you'd face in the exam. Well, let's look at the base concepts behind the responsibility. API 510 inspectors are responsible for inspection, for NDE, for hydro tests, for repairs. Engineers are responsible for design functions, for alterations, for metallurgical and engineering reviews and assessments. So, keeping those things in mind, what is involved in a temporary repair? Is there inspection and NDE? Yes. Therefore, the inspector has to be involved. Is there a design consideration in a temporary repair? Yeah, somebody had to design that temporary repair, so the engineer has to be involved. Without memorizing anything, it's logical to understand that both the inspector and the engineer must be involved in determining that a temporary repair will render a vessel fit for continued service until permanent repairs can be made. It's exactly what you'd find if you opened up API 510 and went to Chapter 8 and read the specific responsibilities. But you knew this without opening the book because you understood the concepts behind the facts. So to review, the keys to preparing using understanding instead of memorization are, first, as you begin to prepare, start paying attention to where you need to know something, in the office or in the field. That's how you're going to determine if something will be open or closed book on the exam. Second, learn the base concepts behind the fact. Understand the why. It takes less time and less effort than memorizing all the facts. And third, reason on the question. If you understand it when you study, you're going to understand it when you encounter it on the exam. Our courses go into this concept in much greater detail. If you're preparing for an API or NB exam, we can definitely help you. That's all for now. Be sure to reach out, subscribe, or follow. Stay safe out there.